Welcome back and live now. I'm Austin Westfall. Let's get that live look at the Capitol back up again. It is 5:50 here on the Pacific Coast on Capitol Hill. It's 8:50 right now. Senate Republicans, again, blocking a bill meant to clamp down on the number of migrants allowed to claim asylum at the U.S.-Mexico border, as Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer sought Thursday to underscore GOP resistance to the proposal. The legislation negotiated by a bipartisan group of senators was already rejected by most Republicans in February when it was linked to a foreign aid package for Ukraine, Israel, and other U.S. allies. But with immigration and border security becoming one of the top issues of this year's election, Democrats are looking for an answer to the barrage of GOP attacks that have been led by presumptive Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump. Let's get to the latest on this border bill. Let's hear from Senator Chuck Schumer, the Democrat out of New York.
Cortez Masto. Senator Stabenow is expected in a moment to join us as well. So we're here again. Just like 3 months ago, Senate Republicans rejected the strongest and most comprehensive bipartisan border security bill Congress has seen in a whole generation. It's a sad day for the Senate, a sad day for America. Look, I understand that today's bill was not going to win every Democratic vote or every single Republican vote. That's what bipartisanship is. It's a compromise. We had hoped that Republicans, having supported this bill once, would put aside politics and rise to the occasion. Sadly, they did not. The goal was to come up with something that could get a majority of Democrats and Republicans in this chamber to become law. See, this bill, crafted by a Democratic senator, an independent, and a staunch conservative, sought to find a way forward and address what Republicans have called an emergency for years. Of course, as leader, I was part of the negotiations. But let's not forget, Leader McConnell was too. Not just in the negotiations, but he signed off on the final package. You don't have to believe me. These are Leader McConnell's words, quote, "I want to congratulate Senator Langford on a remarkable job of negotiating with the other side, getting the support of the Border Council." And McConnell claimed, quote, "If we had 100% Republican government, President, House, Senate, we probably could not have been able to get a single Democratic vote to pass this bill." He also said it was, quote, "the ideal time to do it." He wasn't the only one to buy into this bill. One Republican senator said, quote, "I have never been at the cusp of an opportunity like this in the last 20 years on immigration that we have right now. Something that will make a difference," unquote. So these aren't the words of senators who think this was all just political theater. They sound like words of senators, including Leader McConnell, who were hoping to get something done. So what happened? Well, we know. The former president put politics over what's best for the country. Trump told his MAGA allies to kill it in its tracks so he could exploit the issue on the campaign trail. In Donald Trump's words, "Please blame it on me, please." And Senate Republicans blindly and loyally followed suit. It was appalling then. It's worse now. We gave Republicans a second chance to show where they stand. Do they want to fix this so-called emergency, or do they want to show blind allegiance to the former president, even when they know he's wrong? Our position, to get something done in a bipartisan way, is the position of a large majority of Americans. Poll after poll shows that a large majority of Americans across party lines support our position of getting a bipartisan bill done, and only 8% are in opposition. When Republicans like Donald Trump say don't support a bipartisan bill, wait till next year, they're in a distinct minority with the American people, and even a minority among Republicans. A majority of Democrats, 80% of Americans in key states, believe that the situation at the border is unacceptable and demands attention and action. And this bill would have addressed that in a strong and meaningful way. A majority of Democrats and Americans believe it's imperative to our national security to ensure our frontline border officials have the tools and resources needed to disrupt threats and keep us safe, including hiring thousands of new Border Patrol agents and officers that this bill would have done. A majority of Democrats and Americans believe we absolutely must crack down on fentanyl coming over the southern border. This bill would have done that, using billions of dollars and top technology to do it. It's not just a majority of Democrats and Americans that support what's in this bill, but the Chamber of Commerce, the Wall Street Journal editorial page, the Border Patrol Union. So today was an opportunity for Republicans to listen to the millions of Americans across the country that support this bill and the thousands of Border Patrol officers on the front lines of the border that endorse the bill. The contrast between Democrats and Republicans is clear today and will be even clearer in November. Democrats want to fix the border and get something done. Republicans want to give speeches, let the border fester, and do absolutely nothing to fix the problem. They think it's a smart political strategy, but they're wrong. Now, Democrats will continue to keep trying to fix our border problem. It's too important for our national security, our communities, and our country. Senator Stabenow, you have to go?
Yep.
Okay, Senator Stabenow, if you guys don't mind. Okay, thank
Oh,
you.
I'm sorry. No, there were no-
You go.
Okay,
You go.
okay, great. Well, I'm proud to be part of a caucus that actually likes to get things done. And we have shown over and over again that as Democrats, we know you have to work with Republicans. That's how you get things done. And that's how we have seen so many positive things happening for people. So 106 days ago, Republicans had a chance, as our leader has indicated, to actually step up and support something that they helped create, they helped draft, and because of Donald Trump said no. And today, they had a chance to do that again. You know, what's most frustrating to me is that this is not about politics, it's about solving problems that have yet been solved because they are not willing to join us to do that. Fix the broken asylum system, it's still broken because of their vote today. Stop the flow of deadly fentanyl, it's still coming because of their no votes today. Give the president tools to manage the border, still doesn't have everything that is needed because they voted no today. And investing in border agents and officers that are desperately needed, not just at the southern border, but from Michigan, I can tell you, at the northern border, this is an issue for us as well. These problems are real. We know that. The president knows that. That's why we brought the bill up again, to give another chance to actually get this done. You know, it'd be a great drinking game to every time the Republicans went to the floor and said, we need to do something about border security to be able to follow that, right? And they'll come back again. I bet when we come back, they'll be back again on the floor saying we need to do something about border security. Well, we do. We do. And we're trying. And they've now voted no twice. And we still have the issues, and we're still going to look for ways to solve the problem, because you know what? That's what we do. We step up and offer to work together to solve problems for the American people.
Senator Cortez Masto.
Thank you. And thank you again, Leader Schumer, for your leadership, and to all of my colleagues here with me for all of the work they've done here. Listen, we know what happened today. We all know why a majority of Republicans have not joined us to strengthen our border security, to support our law enforcement, to get fentanyl off our streets, and to protect American families. 2 words, Donald Trump. He would rather use the border chaos for political gain rather than actually solving the problem. Listen, this bill was not something I wanted. It's not something everyone wanted. It's a compromise bill. That's what this is about. It wasn't perfect. Most of the bills we pass in Congress aren't perfect, but our job is to work together to solve the problems within our jurisdiction that the American people want and expect from us. Not to put our party above everything else, or political gain above everything else. Listen, I come from Nevada. We are not a border state, but what happens at that southern border bleeds into Nevada. I know this because unfortunately, like every community, we have fentanyl in our community and it is killing people. Between 2020 and 2023 in Clark County, where Las Vegas is, the Southern Nevada Health District reported the number of overdose deaths involving the use of fentanyl with methamphetamine or cocaine increased 97%. 97%. And it's just not the fentanyl. I will tell you, I was down at the border. I was down at the Tucson sector, both the Lukeville and Nogales. I was talking to our custom agents down there, as well as our Border Patrol. And I'll tell you what, the one thing that they made very clear to me was that they are understaffed and they are overwhelmed. And they want to be able to do their job. And they expect Congress to do its job, which is provide them the resources they need to secure that border and make sure that we have resources to strengthen that border security where they are. And unfortunately today, it's not happening. As you've heard, this bill would hire more officers. It would fund new scanning technology to address what we see the drug trafficking coming across the border, all the while fixing a broken asylum system that is not fair to families and is taking our Border Patrol agents away from other critical work. Listen, the reason why we brought this bill and continue to bring this bill is because this solves the problem. And it's a bipartisan piece of legislation. Working together, this is what Congress does. And we have to show the men and women in law enforcement on those front lines, along with American families and everyone else, that we continue to work together to get things done. And it's unfortunate that some of my Republican colleagues think it's okay to play politics with their lives, with the American public and families' lives. And so I just thank my colleagues and thank Leader Schumer and everyone else who continues to support our law enforcement at the border, continues to put our American families first, and recognizes that we need to continue that work to solve these problems.
Senator Warnock.
Today is about the humanitarian crisis at the border and its implications for our national security, but it's also about something else. It's about a question, it seems to me, that every legislator has to ask himself or herself every day we walk out the door. Who do you work for? Do you work for the people who elected you? Or do you work for somebody else? Do you work for the people of our country, the people of your state, or do you work for somebody who is running for president? The onus is clearly on Washington Republicans to explain to the American people why it is that they won't even agree to move forward to debate a bill that is endorsed and supported by the Union of Border Control Agents, whose names they invoke continuously, supported by our chambers of commerce. It's a bipartisan bill. They have said that there is a crisis at the border, and now that it is time for the Congress to address it in a bipartisan way, we see that they've walked away. And I've heard a lot of words today, but I haven't heard an explanation for why they have walked away from that debate. And the reason is, we all know the reason. It is because they have received their directives from a defendant in a courtroom in New York. Well, I work for the people of Georgia, and I have heard their call for me to come to this place to engage with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. We won't agree on everything. We won't agree on many things. There are things in this bill, be clear, that I don't like. I wouldn't write it exactly the same way. But if we could have moved forward on debate, we could have had amendments, we could have had conversation. And yet Washington Republicans have decided not even to have a conversation about something they say is a crisis. What could be more cynical? What could be more craven? Quite frankly, it is the kind of thing that turns people away from politics, because today is an example of when politics becomes about the politicians. rather than the people. Folk who've decided that they'd rather have the issue than actually try to resolve the issue. And so I won't turn away one moment from working on behalf of the people of Georgia, who have said, by the way, that they need comprehensive immigration reform. If you talk to business owners, business leaders, they know it, that we need to provide a pathway to dreamers. There's a lot that we need to have in this conversation, but today was an opportunity to move forward on securing the American border, which is fundamental to our job. And unfortunately, our colleagues have walked away. The question is, who will stand up for the American people? Who will fight for common sense immigration reform? Who will secure the border? Who will give dreamers a path? And who will actually have the courage to have a conversation, to be serious about something that really is serious?
Thank you. All right, Senator Raphael Warnock wrapping up there. We heard from a number of Democrats about that bill. It did fail. It was doomed to fail from the beginning. We will continue to follow the bill's progress. We will, of course, continue to keep tabs on what all of the top lawmakers are saying as they continue to work through the asylum questions. There's so many border security questions facing both Republicans and Democrats. Let's take another commercial break. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. Welcome back. I'm Austin Westfall. A couple live looks for you, including this one out of New York City. This is where Fox News headquarters is. It's also where Fox Weather headquarters is. There was some big news on the weather front today. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has released its seasonal hurricane outlook for the Atlantic Basin. It's something that we see every year around this time. They say that due to warm waters and a diminishing El Nino, they believe the year could be hyperactive. In fact, they issued their most
GPS and everything. It's very disturbing because, I mean, how can we have all these children disappear? And how can, we just claim that this is like everything they do is it's upside down and inside out. It's totally inverted. So they're creating a human crisis, a humanitarian crisis by doing this. They're not, helping a humanitarian crisis from happening. And so when they say these people are, need help and they're seeking asylum, that's not the case. I mean, you know, I maybe met one individual or group of individuals that was of the LGBTQ community and fled their country due to violence and them being harassed and abused for, you know, being in that checking that box basically. And I saw the fear in their eyes. They actually asked me when it was down in Hakamba, you know, if I could take them out of there. They didn't want to wait. They were just very, very concerned. But other than that, more people are just saying, I want a better life. They're buying into the lie that they've been sold, which is really sad because they're being exploited to push this agenda. So it's like they're using these people to tell them that they're going to have everything when they get here. And they'll literally spend all the money that they have traveling here to have nothing when they get here.
I tell you what, Eye of the Storm. I'm gonna call you Storm because that's kind of like cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
My name means storms, actually. What storm? So it works.
Okay, I like Storm. That's cool. So,
Yeah.
but I want to get into that into the second hour, almost the philosophical or the morality of what's really going. I want to kind of focus on because you can give us an insight for those that aren't down there,
Right.
what it's like. I mean, you've been to the border. I mean, how are these people coming across? Is it what we see on Fox News where they just kind of walk through the fence and they get picked up by Border Patrol and then their journey begins, or what do you see?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's really what happens. I mean, they're being directed to certain areas because, you know, there'll be influxes in a certain area, then one certain area will dry up and it'll kind of shift around. So you can tell, and like the NGOs will know somehow that these people are going to be there. Like they'll walk up against the wall and like just as they're doing that, the NGO is there. But then other times you go and they're not even there, nor is Border Patrol. So it's interesting because you'll just see them walking. I mean, we even caught them walking in the middle of the street, nowhere near like a border wall or anything. And then they had said that they were coming from Tijuana and they were in Jacumba. And I think that they were confused as far as where, I mean, because a lot of them are flying in there. They're taking these many flights, like a flight from their country into South America, and then coming on up and, you know, dropping all of their documents along the way, which is interesting. But they're not like traveling on foot really. So I mean, these people that said that they had been walking from Tijuana to Jacumba, it's like a 26-hour walk, and they were speed walking pretty much. I'm like, you're not even tired, you're not fatigued, you're just walking. Like, you know, the camp that they were headed to was only, you know, a mile or two up from where we had seen them. But I mean, they're not in these, like, I mean, they look really good as far as their clothing goes. They're not really dirty. You know, they're not disheveled. They're very well put together. And so it's like you can tell that all along the way that they've had transportation, and whether it be for a bus or a plane. And as they're, you know, making their way across the border, not everyone, because you'll see many of them with their passports, but you find discarded IDs, discarded passports. I found a military dog tag, but they'll tear up their money. They have all these documents that they have, you know, been processed through like Mexican immigration, and all of these ports or places where they have, you know, had documentation as far as like this is where they were at this day, and then when they, you know, still on the same day they could have still gone through another place where they had to get checked, possibly like some kind of port. I mean, it's some document that is showing like that they crossed a certain area, and they're leaving this as they're crossing. And it's like, well, why would you want to do that if you're seeking asylum? If you're coming somewhere where it's like you're seeking safety, you're not going to want to discard all of that. But they go to great lengths to do it, and they'll even discard their clothing, so many things. And there's so many parts in the wall where it's like, you know, sometimes they're cutting through the wall, sometimes they're climbing over the wall, sometimes there's just a gap in the wall. And, you know, so then when you're seeing them, you know, a lot of them just kind of want help and, you know, just want some water or something like that. I mean, but there's been some where I've seen where they look at you like you're on their territory, and don't film me and you shouldn't be here kind of stuff. And those are the ones that are kind of disturbing because, you know, why are you treating people like that? If you just, you know, crossed over into our nation, what is that going to look like for us when you're here and you're not getting everything that you were promised? But you know, as soon as they come across the border, they'll sit and wait for Border Patrol. Sometimes there's an NGO whatever, helping them and giving them food. And they always have their porta potties, and there's dumpsters, and there's water that they can have. But they'll wait there, and sometimes it can be for a couple of days at a time. It just
So
depends.
these spots where they got porta potties and some sort of facilities there, are these like rendezvous points where the border patrol goes there and waits, and the immigrants know to go there to get picked up? So this is like
Yes,
a meat spot.
correct. Although the Border Patrol isn't waiting for them, they wait for Border Patrol. But the Border Patrol will drive by as soon as there's, a significant amount of people, and then they'll wind up bringing a bus. And so as soon as Border Patrol comes, they wind up detaining them. And at that point, you can't speak to them. You can talk to them at any point when they're not detained by Border Patrol. But as soon as they pull the people aside and have them go through their stuff, sometimes they'll give them a bag to put their things in if they don't have a bag. And those bags have changed, and they wind up dropping those, littering them all over the place when they go through processing and then come out and are dropped off at an Irish, like at a transit center. There's just litter everywhere of all of the paraphernalia, basically, of what the Border Patrol has given them during processing. So they'll give them that bag, they'll give them a bag tag, and then as soon as they, they'll separate the men and the women. A lot of times they'll probably put them on the same bus, depending, because they have it's a prison bus. I mean, so they're locking them in a cage inside, but they'll, put the men in the back and then have the women
Well,
come in.
at this point, they're detained. Am I right? I
Right,
mean,
correct.
they're in the custody of the U.S. government once they meet Border Patrol until they're eventually paroled, as they call it,
Correct.
with a court date. But there's a process where they're prisoners.
Yes.
They're not free to go. And that's
No,
the
and so
part you're talking about where you're not allowed to talk to them.
correct, yes. And so they'll just be
Makes
sitting there,
sense.
and they're like, you can film them, you just can't have a conversation with them. And it's like, okay, well, that's fine. And once they bring them in and they process them, so they have, 6 different hard sites here in San Diego that are Border Patrol stations. And then they created 130,000 square foot soft-sided facility to process these individuals, but they are being processed, some of them, at all of these other facilities as well. Because I've seen them at the other facilities when I was reporting outside of it, and they were putting them in just a Border Patrol van. But they contracted with Damaris Express, which is a charter bus company, and so they're doing a lot of the transporting as well as the Border Patrol buses and vans. But once they leave processing, they either take them to one of the hotels, a shelter, or the transit center, to take public transit so that they can go to the airport. And, the people that go in the hotels would be like families. They're talking about LGBTQ people of concern, women, single women, or if there's children. And so they'll go to those, and they can only stay for a day. But those have been open for 3 years. It's about, and I would know that price has gone up, because back in 2021 it was about $71,000 a day. But with the prices increasing, it's probably, I mean, it could be even close to 80 or 90 or 100,000 a day. Who knows? But
Well,
just
we
for
all
those,
know it's going to cost more to feed them, because I think everyone's experiencing high grocery prices. I was at the grocery store yesterday, and I'm still a little bent about it. So yeah,
yeah,
we know it definitely, the price has gone up. But hang on.
right,
So once they leave Border Patrol's custody, that's when they go into the custody of these NGOs. Is that where the
correct.
hotels are being provided by NGOs, and they're coordinating a transportation to other locations of the United States? Aren't those are NGOs that are orchestrating that?
They are. So the NGOs are okay. So the who's contracting with the hotels is the California Department of Public Health. So it's the state contracting with the hotels, but then the NGOs are working the hotels along with like UCSD hospitals and different things like that. So Jewish Family Services and Catholic Charities Diocese will go in and, provide the things that they need to the people in there. They even give them like concierge service when they are going to the airport, say. The people from the hotels get these folders. They have one of the buses come and pick them up, and they go directly to the airport, and they have the person walk them up to security. I did a coverage of we followed a bus, and then I went inside and followed them into where they went through into the security area, and didn't have to go through and have their picture taken, or I'm sorry, have an ID. And so they were taking their picture instead, like with the cell phone. And they said, that they had their own line. And so some of them, again, like I said, do have passports, so they can go through the line and go through the correct protocol of what they're expecting everybody else to do. because they're sitting there telling everybody that you need an ID. And then when you see these people next to you and they don't, um, it's a little disturbing because, in some places they even have the signs now that say, like, if you're a non-citizen, you don't have a passport, the line's over here. So it's a whole different process for them. But the fact that they even have the concierge service, it's like every step of the way they're being helped and guided. And they even tell them when they're being dropped off at the transit center after the Border Patrol processes them, and they just drop off the, single male and females, sometimes couples in that location. They're putting on their shoelaces because they have their shoelaces taken off. I mean, they're literally detained like if you go into jail. And the NGOs are telling them to take off their wristbands, which they get at the processing center. So it's a wristband that has like a QR code, but it's you get with them in jail too, or like a hospital, but it's to ID
Yeah,
the
it's
people.
got your inmate. It's got your inmate
Yeah,
number on it.
yeah,
That's how
yeah.
they know who you are.
Correct. And then it'll say whether or not they're in a cell, but it tells the country that what they're in, and most of them are from China. But they're dropping them off at the transit center, and they're being told by the NGOs to take them off, and also their bag tags. So it's like they're trying to hide the fact of who they are and like what's going on. But I mean, the sad thing is that children in the county of San Diego can ride the transit for free. And so it's like, and alone, unaccompanied. So we have these, military age men and other individuals that are able to ride the transit for free, all while nobody else in the community can. Like the homeless can't. I couldn't if I wanted to just go ride it, but these people can. And at one point before so sometimes there's taxi cabs that'll be sitting out there waiting for them. And a lot of them are actually immigrants who have come legally, and they, would talk about how they think they can't wait for Trump to come in because he's going to deport them and stuff. But they're sitting there trying to, make money because they know they have to go places. But the NGOs will tell them, don't talk to them, don't go with them. And it's like, they're very, and part of that is that the NGOs have monetary gain that they get from all these individuals that they are encountering, right? So it's not because they want to do it out of the kindness of their heart. They actually have something to gain from it. And that's what's so disturbing.
Well, tell us where that money comes from, Storm.
Yeah, it comes from,
They get paid. You and I talked about it, they get paid per head of each person they process. And I guess the NGOs assign them a personal assistant. I wish that the government would give me a personal assistant. That'd be pretty cool.
I mean, right?
But,
I mean,
yeah,
I mean,
here's your
they
ticket,
get,
sir. Yes,
yeah,
you're gonna go through this line. Yes, sir.
I know.
We got you. Here's your agenda. Here's your itinerary. I take that.
Yeah. Well, they'll even
Um,
say they have so much food that, they have to put some back. So it's like they're being fed really well. And those, like you're saying, the contracts with the food, those are multi-million dollar contracts that are in either with a restaurant or a produce company that will provide produce to like restaurants, but then they'll also make some meals for these people because they do it for other types of things, like supposedly the homeless. But the homeless are the ones, digging through the trash looking for food, and these people never have to worry about it. And in the process of them providing food for these individuals at the restaurants, the employees are suffering because they're actually having their hours being cut because the restaurant will close down for like 3 hours during the day to make the food and provide it. And then, the employees will tell their boss, like, we're losing hours. Like, why do you need to do this? And they're like, what's it to you? And it's like, well, this company is, getting millions of dollars. They're buying new vans just to transport this food to the hotels. And they don't care that their employees are suffering. And it's like, so, I mean, what are you doing here? Do you know what I mean? We are supporting these replacements with things that the people in the community should have. And it's actually harming our communities, especially when you're taking money that's, could go towards homelessness or so many other things. But instead, and there's so many cuts that are happening in the state and the county and the cities that are in San Diego and California. It's off the charts, but this never gets defunded. All that happens is more and more money gets thrown at it. In fact, we just got, $39 million from FEMA, the SSP program, to go ahead and help facilitate more and open up a new transfer site. So that school that I first found them at, or they went to when first finding them, closed down. It was only open for just under 4 months. It was like a week shy of 4 months, and they spent $6 million on it. And the NGO that was working that is South Bay Community Services, and they spent 2 million of that, a third of it, on their employees for 4 months. So that's $500,000 a month Now, how many employees could you possibly have that you were paying $500,000 a month just for processing, say, like 81,000 individuals is what they're saying. But I mean, at one time, you're only going to have, maybe 300, say. But I mean, that's a lot of money. And that's what happens is that all of these NGOs wind up putting money in their pockets. So it's like the Jewish Family Services in San Diego. The CEO back in 2019 was making about $359,687. And the next year, $392,521. And then the following year it was 470, 424. So it's like it will double the amount. So like the first year that I was looking at that, it was like a $33,000 increase. Then it goes to like 77. And if you keep going up because they didn't have it for 22 and 23, I mean, that's going to be in the $600,000 range. So they just keep increasing in their salaries and the money that goes in their pockets and the assets that they have in their entities. And, it's
But isn't a lot of what the money that they're funded with, doesn't that come from the federal government into the NGO system where it's almost not accountable at that point?
it does. And that's the problem. Like even the
That
Catholic,
these NGOs are gain contracts, or they're appointed somehow by the government to distribute
correct.
these funds, and they take those funds in. And at that point, we don't really have a right to know what they're doing with it. They're just doing their NGO mission. But this is our tax dollars she's talking about when we talk about the
Right.
salaries and the amount of money, the millions that we pitch around like it's no big deal, but that's all tax dollars that we're funding. And I think what you're saying is the same thing, Storm. We're kind of funding our own demise.
Yes.
We're giving up resources to give the resources to folks, and they've got as long as they've got an open border situation, they can always call it an emergency. That's why you've got FEMA involved. They just
Mm-hmm.
declared an emergency. FEMA's involved, but folks that don't really understand what FEMA is, very few people actually work for FEMA. It's mostly contractors. I had a contract at one time, and that's what took me to New Orleans. Matter of fact, during the Ida storm, is I had a contract to do the Blue Roof program with FEMA, and you just get a contract. If it happens, then they give you money and you go do it. It's not it can be lucrative. It's a pain in the ass, but it can be lucrative. But that's what these NGOs are. They
Yes.
work with FEMA. They are just groups that have this. If this happens, we're going to do this. So if an emergency is declared, then funding goes that way. But that's all FEMA does is actually disperse funding. They
Right.
don't really do anything else. They have other people that do these things, and they pay them to do it.
Correct. And it's like there's no oversight, right? So as soon as that money gets out of their hands, there's like, okay, we're done. We did our job. And then the NGO takes it and they're like, sweet, I just got all this money. What are we going to do with it? You know what I'm saying? And so it's very convoluted because there are so many NGOs. Like even just in San Diego, there's one entity that's like a consortium of 50 different entities that are all engaging in this. So, I mean, what I encourage people to do is, and this is what I want to say too, is that, you can look in your own community and see which of them are engaging in this. You have to like look up for their trigger words and put in like immigration or migrants, and you'll pull up and see how many of these entities there are that are all vying to get the money. And with the Catholic Charities, one thing that is with them where you definitely can't follow it, and they're the ones that actually get the money from FEMA here in San Diego, and then they split it with Jewish Family Services, and then they dole it out to other NGOs because they have their own like sister NGOs that they work with and do different things. But the Catholic Charities has filed for bankruptcy due to pedophilia allegations and victims that they have to pay out. So it's very easy to hide that money when you don't have any forms, and you know what I'm saying? So it's like you can't follow it through them. I had to follow it through looking even at FEMA, and FEMA gave Catholic Charities Diocese last year just under $75 million just in that realm. But there's money coming from all other places, like I said. So the state is contracting with these hotels, right? And through public health, which is bizarre because it's like, why would they even be the ones that are doing that? But then this other shelter, the Jewish Family Services, is actually leasing this property from the state. And they said it's in the best interest of the state to provide this for the migrants. And it's like, no, this is destroying our nation. We're literally funding the demise of our nation and the demise of us having, any kind of, good life beyond this, because things are just in turmoil. People are just trying to survive right now. And the people that they're having come across are taking all of the resources that that we need. And it's just, it's sad to think about. So there was a storm here in San Diego, and you know, they were sitting there trying to dictate whether or not these people should still be able to stay in their hotel past a certain time, and how many meals they should get per day just for help. And mind you, the county basically didn't keep up with their infrastructure to make sure that everything was upkept, so that if there was a storm, that people wouldn't lose everything. But they didn't do it for like over a decade, and so now they want to actually tax people more just to pretend to try and take care of it. But these people who lost everything are just having to come and beg and plead just to have help to rebuild. And it's like, you know, these people are sitting up on a dais, sitting there going, should we give them 1, 2, or 3 meals a day? I'm like, these illegals don't have to worry about that. They get guaranteed 3 meals a day. They have guaranteed shelter. They have guaranteed transportation. You know, they're never having to question any of that.
I want to ask you. I want to ask you a question, and then I want to go to. I know our audience members who've been listening are going to have some questions. We've got some real thinkers in here tonight. But then I want to open it up to questions. But you live in San Diego. What are your neighbors and your fellow San Diego? What do y'all call yourselves there?
San Diegans,
The
I guess.
San Diegans.
Yeah, I
Really
guess.
weird.
I know.
But I'm going to go with it. San Diegans. So what do your fellow San Diegans feel about this? Because I'll be quite honest with you, is that you guys put up with can't go to the beach because of COVID and all the mandates there, and all the political leaders that brought those laws and mandates about are still in office. So, I mean, when do you think that people in California are going to have enough of it and actually show, make a candidate, a representative, be a representative? I mean, the NGO money comes down from laws and being passed and legislation. And and you're right, they'll find about 1,000 different ways to shovel money into a cause if they want to. But you know,
Mhm.
they can always say it's a health issue because why is a health issue? There's so many people. It's an
Oh, yeah.
emergency. We got to have it. So I mean, what do you think about your fellow San Diegans and fellow Californians? Do you think that they've been governed enough to where they might want to fight back at the ballot box?
I mean, that's the hope. I think, you know, after COVID, people kind of just went back to sleep and quit paying attention. They felt like that was it. And they're starting to kind of see more. The more that we continue to uncover it, and other journalists do as well, there's a lot more light being shown on it. And because we're now the main hub for it, you know, you can't help but pay attention. But like I said, you know, how it fell in my lap, it was like I knew it was going on, but I didn't understand the full extent of it. And I think that's with a lot of people. They almost need to really like go to the airport and see these people getting this kind of concierge service. Go to Iris Transit Center where you can see them being dropped off, you know, or go to the border where you can actually see them coming across and how that whole process goes. And, you know, so we had an event actually, Oreo Express did on last Sunday, at one of the shelters that the Jewish Family Services is uh, leasing from the state for a shelter there, and it's was an old California Highway Patrol office, and we were there to, you know, bring light to it. So I think it was great because there was a complete power shift. There's people, there's security guards and companies that are working these buildings, whether it's the hotels or the shelter or the transit site and or transfer site. And when they're doing that, these people are really aggressive. They try and keep the people, you know, shut up and like, don't be here. You can't be here. This is private property. And just having the people be there and be present and pushing back, there was a complete power shift that happened. And it was pretty amazing. And that's why I'm actually doing an event on Saturday where we're going to have a march around a few of the places, just to show the people so that they can experience it themselves. And I think the more that that happens, and the more that, you know, people start to go, okay, there is a problem, because they are taking what we're showing them and seeing it as like, oh, this isn't, I didn't realize, you know, that this was happening or whatnot. And it's going to be good, because I know that the people can shift what's happening if we all stand together, because we can. But we just have to quit allowing all this stuff to happen and quit allowing them to make us feel like there's nothing we can do. Because just being present at these places, it screws with their agenda. So they can't continue to run the operation or the machine the same way as when you're not there. I mean, even if I'm just there out reporting, they'll be like, oh my gosh, you know, and try and send the bus away. Don't come in here, even though you already
Yeah,
know what's going on.
You know, and I get what you're saying, but it kind of
Mhm.
leads me also back to the fact is like, why do people have to go out and push back on the government to keep them in line when we have people that we elect? I guess the same people are out there keeping the government in line are going and voting, and there's like they keep the same person there that put the law in effect or allowed this to happen in the first place.
Well, I don't know. I mean, the problem is that the people haven't been holding the government accountable. Like people believe that just voting somebody in is going to be good enough and that they'll represent you. But from the government's inception, we were supposed to be like their oversight committee, making sure that they're doing what represents the people. But because everybody's taken a seat back and stepped away from that, these people have done whatever they want. And so they're ruthless at this point because they figure, well, what are you guys going to do about it? It's like, we're in charge, you're not. And that's why we have to flip it back the way it should go. And
No,
even if
you're right, and but we have a theory on night court that if the more the government encroaches, they'll reach a point where the American people they'll push back. And we're kind of curious if are we in that election cycle now with Donald Trump and Biden and the way things are going with the open borders, so many different facets of this administration that I think a lot of people are not happy with. Are we going to see that sea change in honestly, as California goes the rest of the nation? If California were to flip and go with a more conservative route with their not just the president, but their assembly house, their state senators, the state level, the local, damn mayors and stuff like that. I think that's a sea change that I would like to see, but I don't know that I'll go back again. What I originally said is that we have a theory that there is a point, there's an equation that if the government is going to push too far, is that interfering with our parental rights? We see that in California and Minnesota.
Mhm.
Maybe we'll see. We'll see in November. Is it the border issue? And that's why I ask about folks in San Diego. What do your neighbors think about that? Are they like fed up with it, or they're just kind of still ignoring it and walking on like everything's okay, or it's going to get better tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's more people that are just walking along thinking that it's going to get better tomorrow. That they're just because it's not necessarily in their face because they try and hide it a lot. Unless you're looking now, anytime I see a white bus or a van or mesh fence around some building, all this telltale signs of what I know that this machine entails. It triggers my thought. Okay, what's going on here? And sometimes it's nothing, but when you haven't experienced that, I think people just kind of go about their day. They wouldn't even be clued into what that means, like what that bus is or what this, why is this building enclosed like that? Why is that security out there? What are they doing? I don't think people are necessarily kind of thinking like that because they're worried about, just surviving right now. And that's where they need the people to keep people distracted from what's really going on around them. You got to have people in dire straits, having to focus on just like, how am I going to feed my family? How am I going to, or even people that lost everything in the storm, how am I going to rebuild? How am I going to afford to live here? Because even just in the city of San Diego for, like a 1 or 2 bedroom, you need to make 50, almost $60 an hour. And it's like, most of the people don't. So that's part of it is that they're just always keeping people paying attention to something else because they don't have, and it's like, along with the border patrol, you can see that they are, not happy with what's going on. They're not happy that they have to be, doing this type of work and doing the complete opposite of what they were trained to do. But they're happy that we're there, like uncovering it. And a lot of them I hear will be like, I have to wait till I retire. I want to just wait it out because otherwise they lose everything that they worked so hard for. So people are, because if you would think about it, you'd want them to go, well, just quit your job, you know, just get out of it and quit doing that. But it's people are under such duress that I feel like it's really hard for them to pay attention to the other things. But then you'll have other people where like more and more every day people are, contacting me and want me to share more. Can you come talk to us because we're trying to get people more involved? So that's why I think it's important for us to do that. We have to be the ones talking to all the people because I can't just expect this information to get around without me being a part of that and making sure that I'm doing my part to make people aware. And when we do that, then at least you're planting a seed and people can kind of come in and start to think about it and seeing because they may not look at it as a destruction of your nation. There's a lot of people that like I'll call into meetings and talk about the border and what's going on. And other people will talk about how, um, it's not that bad. They think, we need to welcome people. So you have a lot of that where they want to, not be like racist in a way and act like we can't have people come in. But how many people do you let in a nation when there's, you know, tens of millions of them already here? You know, I don't think they kind of grasp that really.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that if you look at things from a conservative side, this election cycle in particular has a tendency that it could go our way, because no matter what if you're struggling because you can't put food on the table, you can almost look at some policies like, well, how come we're not producing more energy for ourselves? How come we're not doing things to help us out right now? I do think that I think the American people are pushed to a wall. We'll see if they've gotten there. But let me go to some questions. No telling which way it'll turn this conversation, but I know folks have got some questions for you, or at least some comments about what you said. Let's go to Lisa. Lisa from Massachusetts. Sofa likes the way I say the word or the name of Massachusetts, so I'll say it one more time for you, Sofa. But go ahead, Lisa.
Okay, I appreciate it, Joe. Former Massachusetts. I am a former Masshole. Yes, because now I am a Northern Mainer, but unfortunately, I still have ties to Mass, and looking forward to at some point permanently ridding myself of the parasitic problems of Massachusetts. And very much about what Storm talks about. They call Massachusetts Little Cali. And I put some things down in the bottom of the purple pill there, some articles describing very parallel to what's going on in San Diego here in Massachusetts. And what's so incredibly devastating is that in Massachusetts, there is no pushback. They actually took the Chelsea Soldiers Home, which is specifically deeded to be for veterans, okay, and have made it now for the migrants, okay.
Now
And
hold up. Hold up. The old soldiers' home. I'm a former soldier. That's a big deal. Everybody gets an Article 15, or they have to pay a fine in the army. It goes to the old soldiers' home. You forfeit your pay to the old soldiers' home. They're giving that to who?
to these migrants, I put it down in the article down below, also posted on the Megatron.
Man, you folks in Massachusetts, California, y'all need to get your crap together. What's going on up there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna throw this out there and guess that the nickname Little Cali is probably not because of similarity in the weather. Is that accurate?
Oh, yeah, had nothing to do about the weather, man. Let me tell you, it's more about the cesspool. But yeah, so I threw that up in the Megatron there for you, Joe, about the article there. The other thing that I just briefly wanted to point out about what Storm is talking about regarding the Jewish family services is such a broad racket. I wrote for the Boston Broadside several articles back in 2018 where this agency is a cog in the wheel for the Guardian racket. We're talking about human trafficking of, infants through the elderly. So it's so pervasive. And thank you, Storm, for exposing all that you are. The silver lining for me being in Maine, I also put some articles down in the purple pill there about what you were talking about, the migrants being put up in the hotels and the encampments going on. But at least in Maine, I am seeing a pushback. So I just put down some articles that's very relevant. So thanks very much for all that you do.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And
Appreciate you, Lisa. Go ahead, Storm. Sorry.
yeah, no, it's okay. Well, I was just going to say, I think that more and more people are going to continue to wake up. Like there's different groups, like I said, that are trying to, even wanting me to come and speak about it. And they're like asking what they can do. I think part of the problem too with people doing something is a lot of times they don't know what to do. They're not quite sure how to navigate it and like what will make a difference. And that's why I think it's important for us as we the people and whatnot to get together and help each other through that and guide each other and be like, okay, if you don't know what to do, maybe come talk to somebody who can. But that's why we need to continue to engage and be a community as opposed to continuing to let them spread us apart and divide us. I feel like I thought it would be COVID that would bring us all together. I used to do marches down in San Diego, just trying to get people to wake up and be like, we got to fight back and take our nation back. I feel like this is even more dire and that, we could possibly be seeing an uprising of people. That is my hope. And I believe that it's shifting. It's just not where it could be. And I think that a lot of times we want things to happen in our time and that just doesn't, and so sometimes we have to wait. And unfortunately, sometimes too, something bad has to happen for other people to wake up. Like they're going to have to hit rock bottom. And I'm not sure what that looks like. I don't know if that means a civil war, but I see that coming down the pipe. And so if that's what has to happen for the people to wake up, then so be it. It's just sad because it's not going to be good. I mean, good will come out of it, but we'll be facing some really serious and trying times. And I hope that doesn't happen. But again, I think that sometimes that's what it takes.
I don't disagree with you. It kind of goes back to, I think we share the same opinion on that, that they'll reach a point where people have had enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a good thing, these sanctuary cities. I think it's a good thing that migrants are going to New York and Chicago and these places, and you're hearing the people kind of kick back on that. I think that's what we need to get maybe our government back in line. But I want to go to Dennis. Dennis, welcome to the space, and then I'm gonna come to you, John.
Thank you. First of all, Storm, I want to thank you for all the work that you're doing. Greatly appreciated that you're getting this information out to everybody. And I think going kind of parlaying on what Lisa was saying, I think a lot of people aren't pushing back because we've been propagandized so hard to accept this and to make us think that this is a good thing, that diversity is our strength, and this is part of that. And so I think people are starting to kind of come around and realize that that's not necessarily the case. But I want to ask you and get your opinion on something, because I know it's just not the United States that's dealing with this; it's Europe as well. And it seems to me that the United Nations is involved in this as well, along with the NGOs and drug cartels, and they're facilitating the illegal immigration. And to me, what's frustrating is that we talk about what's happening, but not necessarily talk about why it's happening. And there's theories from the Epoch Times essentially saying it's a way for us to have a more global governance and eliminate the unipolar world government or order. In other words, destroy the United States. China might be involved because they're building a road to connect the Darien Gap. Or simply the NGOs are making money, which obviously they are. Or there's a military takeover. They're going to use conscription to get a lot of these immigrants into the military to take everyone over. What do you think? And more importantly, did you see the United Nations involved in it? And what do you think is really happening?
Yes, absolutely. They're involved. And I mean, but they're also involved if you think about all the climate stuff. I mean, so they are, and so is the World Economic Forum, but, and it goes up to the top to even like the Rothschilds in the Vatican. It's all of these elites that have been trying to control the world, and they do have to take out America because we're the strongest. So you have to take out America from within in order to bring about this new world order. Right. So that's how they can do it, is just either. Is it? Oh, I don't know if John was trying to talk. Okay. So when they're doing that, it's all by design. It's all intentional, everything that they're doing. And this is such a huge machine, and it's worldwide. I mean, because how can you leave China? How can these people leave China? Right. I mean, the CCP is just going to let them go. I highly doubt that. And so it's the United Nations. We fund the United Nations the most. So it's like we're also the makers of our own demise in that. It's very strange to think about how people here can be engaged in actually the destruction of their own nation and not see what they're doing is actually that. Because I think there's some people that are brainwashed and some people actually are complicit in it and know. But this is a total takedown because they have to, in order to implement the New World Order and all of those things, they have to take us down in that way, but they also have to enslave you. That's why they want open borders. The United Nations does. They've been wanting it. They wanted to make like this a whole union between Canada, Mexico, and the United States. And, so it's something that has been in the works for a very long time. That's why they have, even just from like the Vatican on down, they have all of these commissions or committees that they have to try and implement this migration stuff into their church. So it's been flooding in from the top down for a very long time. And I think now we're just seeing it more. I mean, that's the thing. It's because, I mean, if you look back into even the 70s, there's been from the 70s until now, there's been a lot of people that have been crossing. There's been more than they are claiming now, like millions at a time in a year, like in the, 60s, 70s, 80s. I mean, sorry, 70s, 80s, and 90s. But now it's, we're looking at 45 million plus, and it's not stopping. And so with the United Nations, then they have all these other entities that they're, funneling their money to and engaging with. I mean, they're even, like there's no point in time that these people don't know where to go. Because I always think like, well, how are you going to leave China and then just wind up, in Hagamba? How would you know how to do that? You wouldn't. But even when you're going and they engage with Mexican immigration, they give them documents telling them how to get here and what to do. So all along the way, all these NGOs are going, this is what you say. They'll give them phones, they'll give them money. Like the United Nations is giving them cards and money, but they're also, they've been talking about the UN soldiers coming in because we have a pandemic preparedness treaty that's coming down the pipe tomorrow where they're going to take our sovereignty just for the threat of a pandemic. So there's also that where it's like, are they going to be implementing these UN soldiers to come in and make everybody be complicit with the next lockdown that they want to put on us? And like you said, these individuals in California, they're able to join the military or the police department. In fact, in LA and a couple other places they have, but they have to give up their gun at the end of the night. Like, we can't let you have it when you go home, but here during the day, none of these people are really care about America. I mean, America's had their hands in everybody's business for eons, destroying places. I mean, we orchestrated we did 9/11 to ourselves, right? But if they're sitting here concerned about a 9/11 happening again, a terrorist attack, then wouldn't you be concerned that you have military men and foreign militaries coming across the border? Like, how can I find a military ID tag from a Muslim soldier and that's not a concern? Why would he leave it at the border like that? Why would they just discard those types of things? That should be a concern to people, and I find that like that was pretty it was shown a lot, like when I found that tag, but I don't think people really understand and grasp what that really means. Because people will question it and stuff like that, like, oh, well, maybe it's just someone's family member who dropped it. I mean, or it was their family members and they just dropped it. Like maybe it was his dad's. And I'm thinking we can make all this excuses that we want, but when it's very blatant and in your face, you can tell this is an invasion. This is an intentional destruction of our nation. And these people are here to replace us. And what happens when everybody's vying for stuff, when they're vying to have the same resources, just like food and water, right? If they were to lock us down, I mean, are people prepared to do whatever it takes to protect their family and make sure that, if you need food, you're going to be able to provide it for them? Or, I mean, how's that going to go? So I don't know if I answered your question. But
No, you did. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think it's pretty scary, and I think that this is much bigger than we can realize, and I think unless we talk about why it's happening, we can't really get to the bottom of it. We can talk about what is happening, but why is to me is the more important question. But thank you.
hmm yeah, absolutely. Why? Because, unless people understand, that's the whole thing, even with like COVID and having them try and, tell us this is what's best for you to inject yourself, say with a bioweapon that could potentially kill you. You know, everything they do is inverted. And for me, I understand this is Satan's playground. So it's like, I see things for what they are more so because I'm like, okay, before when I didn't understand that, I thought, well, how can all these things take place? And how can, you know, these people seemingly think like say they want the best for us or saying that they represent us and they're doing these things for us. But when you see, you know, the fruits of their labor and you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't seem right, then you can start to like, you have to allow your reality to shatter in order to see clearly and navigate this place. Because until you can accept, and it's about acceptance, like people have to start to accept the hard truths. You have to accept that these people don't have your best interests at heart. They actually don't care about you at all. Because if they did, they wouldn't be doing any of these things. They would be totally transparent. It's just like going and trying to talk to somebody at one of these hotels or, you know, one of the shelters or even at the airport. And they, you know, try and attack you. I mean, you know, or call the police on me and tell me what I'm doing is wrong. And, you know, they're just not transparent. And so I'm thinking, well, if you were doing something that was like helping humanity, why would you want to hide it? You'd want to be totally out in the open going, yeah, this is what we're doing. We're going to take these people to the airport because they got to go on to their next flight. Instead, they're like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? Why do you want to know where this money is going? You know, get out of here. This is none of your business kind of stuff. And
You know what? That's actually a very good point. If they were doing what they thought was the Lord's work, so to speak, then they would it'd be commercials all over television, everywhere else, asking you to give up some donations to help the
yeah,
cause.
right. Exactly. And they wouldn't put on a mask. They're told these NGOs have forms. So I went and read one that was at one of the places in San Ysidro, right by the border. They have these tents, and it's like in their paperwork, they're talking about like anti-migrants and, you know, trying to make sure that you're making these migrants feel safe, and that if, you know, a journalist comes up like a white nationalist who's anti-migrant, you know, you can put on a mask and disguise yourself, make sure you're taking pictures and documenting it, make sure that they're not harassing these people. And so they have this whole like we're the bad guy. That's what's really sad is I'm like, wow, I'm trying to protect my nation and you guys are acting like I'm the one that is in here trying to usurp it. It's bizarre, but that's what they're training. And so they're just as complicit in this, right? And they're the ones like, because the government acts like, well, we can't take care of this. We can't do what needs to be done. So we have to engage with all these NGOs because they can provide the services because they already do. Like they're the ones that get the money for pretending to help homelessness, or like the Jewish Family Services was just in the Board of Supervisors vying to get part of a $6.4 billion like grant or to go in there and seek money for that for you know, involuntary conservatorship type of stuff. So I mean, they're always vying for wherever the money's at. It's not that they actually really care about helping people because they don't. How can homelessness get worse even though you throw billions of dollars at it? Unless that was the intention, unless it's a business. So it's always about filling the pockets of these individuals and these entities as opposed to actually really doing something that's good. Because I always go like, can you imagine if with all the money that's been spent to, you know, pretend to fix homelessness or goes towards making affordable housing and none of it is because it's all like in the $1 million range and nobody can afford, that's not affordable. But if we actually did stuff to better the communities and stuff, oh my gosh, we would be thriving. But we have these nefarious people that are in power. And that's why it's we're allowing it. We got to quit allowing this stuff to take place. You know, we need to course correct. And it starts with us individually too, by going, okay, what am I going to do that's going to change the world around me? Because I can't just be looking at somebody else to be the one doing it all the time. We still need to look internally and go, what am I doing to perpetuate this? If I'm doing something that's actually making it worse because I'm acquiescing to it and allowing it, what can I do to change that? And then step into it. And then if we all did, it's so powerful because we realize who we are. I mean, we're made in the image of God and the image of our creator, and we will do greater things than Jesus did. But if we're not willing to step into that, this is what we get. Like this is the repercussions of us allowing all this stuff to take place. So if we could do that so easily by doing nothing, I mean, imagine what could come from us actually doing something that would change the trajectory of our lives.
No, I think you won't find many arguments in this room on that. Let me get to John, And we got some hands up. Let's go through some questions, Storm. Go ahead, John.
Hey, Storm. First, thank you. My eyes have been like wide open just listening to you talk. And secondly, I want to apologize. I was trying to get my dog in. Uh, anyway, so Dennis kind of asked part of the question I was going to ask. Uh, but I have to wonder, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I have to wonder. You see our government not really doing anything to stop this flow. And I think all of us have heard chatter that, and we know it's a fact that you've got all kinds of people coming over here that are affiliated with terrorist groups, organizations, or criminal organizations and whatnot. And then you hear news stories that these people are coming across with fully charged cell phones or iPads and stuff like that. So my question is kind of multi-layered. Like, did you see anything that to indicate how that's being facilitated, like the charged cell phones and stuff like that? And the second part of it is there any indication that our own government is funding this? And the reason I ask that is you see a lot of the people that's coming over illegally. They're all, they're pro Biden. They I don't even think they realize or even care what political group it is, but they're pro Biden. And the theory behind it is to get votes. So it's like, if that's why they're not trying to stop it, uh, and then if and I hope he does, but if Trump does get elected, back to the Civil War thing you were speaking of, I've heard from some people with some three-letter agencies that they've got their eyes open, and they're watching certain groups, they're watching certain people, because if Trump is elected, there's going to be a major civil war, and it's going to include these people that have come over illegally, and it's all going to come down and come out at one time. So my question is, have you seen anything that would kind of lead you to believe that that might be happening, or am I way off in left field?
No, I think that you're very correct, and that's what they've been talking about. The government, I'm just going to kind of go down what you said. The government isn't stopping it; they're facilitating. They're paying for it. So when they're sitting here and protecting other borders, they're saying ours is secure while it's being invaded. And instead of spending money to stop it, they're spending more money to facilitate more. And that's the problem, is when you ask for like help from the government, all they're going to do is help the increase, as opposed to going, okay, we got to, because they have, everybody's always going, I don't have jurisdiction. That's not my job. I can't do that. I don't have the power to do it. And it's like, that's BS. You're just saying that as an excuse because you opened it. You could close it. You know what I mean? There's so many things. And then with the cell phones, like they'll be charging them along the way. I've seen them with actual batteries and stuff, but they tend to, when they're getting here, they have to get another SIM card. So they're using Wi-Fi. So they're even having Wi-Fi along the way. So they're able to communicate and have their cell phones. It's not like, and then the NGOs will also help them. But they're definitely pro Biden. None of them are saying that they want Trump. They're in fact scared if Trump gets in. That's why they're trying to say that they're trying to get here as quick as possible right now before November, so that, in case Trump gets in, they're going to be in here, and then, they don't have to worry about not making it in time. But then that also, because they want to mess with the census and be able to, have more electoral votes in certain areas because there's more people. And in that, I believe that the elections is a huge part of it. But I don't think that that's the end goal. I believe it is to destroy the nation. Because what do you do even, and even if Trump got in, it could cause a civil war just trying to have him get out. Because I mean, he can close the border, but how do you get, nearly 45 million people out of the nation? Like, you can't just go round them up. Do you know what I'm saying? And these people are going to be fighting to not want to leave,
Yeah,
right? And
and yeah, and yeah, that's my point. Is because like I think like Dennis said, we've got our own issues with homelessness. We've got homeless veterans, and it's like, why are they throwing money at the southern border, helping these people in when we've got our own issues um, that we need to be taken care of. I cannot wrap my head around that mindset.
Well, and that's why you have
Well,
to understand that it's all by design and they're trying to destroy us. You know what I mean? None of it makes sense. You're never going to wrap your head around it because none of it is like, oh, that's logical. It's completely illogical, and it only shows what their intentions are. And then I think about when you were talking about the CIA, or sorry, Joe, real quick, the three-letter agencies and certain groups of people, it makes me wonder, like, and you're talking about Trump, is that us? You know, that they want to look at because they want to attack the people that want to, you know, support Trump and support the things that he's, you know, about. So is it that they're going to do that and come after the people, and then it will create more of a crazy time because these people are going to see that it'll be open doors for everybody to kind of just unleash chaos.
Yeah, and I've often played with the thought of trying to, and people are going to laugh, infiltrate a Democratic group as if I was a Democrat just to see what the hell it is they're doing. To say, aha, I got you. This is what you're doing. Have proof. But yeah, I'd probably wind up dead.
Well, I mean, but that's a good way, or even having somebody who's been a part of that, that has seen things that they don't like and wants to kind of be a whistleblower. So sometimes you need that. I mean, I'd love to go into every NGO and pretend to work there, but I mean, I have like really, you could recognize me because of I look, yeah, my hair's super bright. I mean, I wouldn't fit in, but that we
well,
need
y'all,
people like that.
but y'all hold up. Y'all act like they're hiding this. This is not being hidden. What happens in the
Right.
NGOs is not a secret. The government knows what's going on there. They're just a private entity, and they can tell you you don't have a right to know what's going on inside the private entity, just like a business would, a restaurant. A restaurant could ask you to leave as well. But that's what they are. But this restaurant's being funded by the federal government. Uh, but I think the motive is not unclear. Listen to the language we hear now that the southern hemisphere is going to be most impacted by climate change, and the United States is wholeheartedly, single-handedly responsible for all this climate change because we're the most prosperous nation in the world. So it's a mass migration. It is a globalist movement, but it's a mass migration moving forward. One of the reasons it got so bad after the Biden administration is he changed an executive order. When you talk about jurisdiction, the federal government does have jurisdiction over immigration by the Constitution. That no the states can't regulate that. It's regulated by the federal government has supreme jurisdiction over it. But what he changed the law was it used to be to get asylum you had to be on U.S. ground, your feet had to be on U.S. soil, and you had to come in through a point of entry. If you come across the river like in Texas, or you come across the desert like in California, or around on the ocean and land on the beach, once they got you, you could not claim asylum. You forfeited that right. To make sure if you wanted asylum, you come in through a port of entry, didn't sneak in. But Biden relaxed that. Now anybody who lands feet on U.S. soil can claim asylum. And I think folks are hitting that border for a lot of different reasons. It's almost like, and is Erath in the room? Our good friend Erath is in the room. I forget how many years he waited to come over here by doing it properly. Whereas if you didn't, now you don't have to wait. Now you can you get into Mexico. You can come across the border and claim asylum because asylum, the rules are we'll figure it out in 6 to 10 years. In the meantime, we're going to parole you into the interior of the United States, and you're free to go about your business. But it's definitely a movement. And I wasn't going to really bring this up. And if you go back, the only thing that the people in this for socialism government to work in the United States, they've got to get rid of the Bill of Rights. Those first 10 amendments of the Constitution. Those that know that I'm pro 2A, but I'm pro 2A not just because I want to possess a firearm and defend myself with it, but I'm also pro 2A because it's the most dangerous one. It's the scariest one out there. So a lot of people will get behind it. Well, let's pass this little law over here that encroaches on it. Let's pass this other little law that well, it's only reasonable if you'd have to do this. Only reasonable if you submit to this before you can exercise this 2A. If they can block that down with laws, and the rest of them are up for grabs as well. And that's when I think we truly lose. Hopefully people are starting to wake up and see this in other parts of the nation, and hopefully we'll vote against it. But I'm going to come off my soapbox and I'm going to get to some hands. We've had some very patient spin. You've been very patient, but folks, let's try to keep it down to about a minute so we can get the hands. We're in our second hour. Go ahead, Spin.
Yeah, she's absolutely right with the NGOs and the UN. In fact, all this is one huge UN operation, and it all started on the day called Earth Day, when the Environmental Protection Agency came in and started stipulating, we need to plant more trees because we need more carbon, and now we need less carbon, and it's just been an ongoing deal. But the bigger picture is that it's just a huge transfer of wealth between dictators. And I'll land my plane there.
Thank you, Spin. I want to go to Terry. Terry may have stepped away. Go ahead, Kingdom.
Hey, sorry. Sorry. Go ahead, Kingdom. I was looking up something, but go ahead, Kingdom.
I can't hear Kingdom. Can anybody else?
No.
Can,
Yeah,
I
you might have
step
to
up?
drop out and come back, Kingdom.
Can I
Nobody can
step
hear you,
up?
brother.
Oh,
Go
gosh.
ahead. Go ahead, Terry.
Sorry about that. So I posted in the comments about it's from the National Archives about how the Electoral College works, and there's an FAQs in there. There's all kind of things. So if people are confused, not y'all in this space, y'all are very well educated, but like if you're trying to share information with your neighbors or your family or your friends, I think that's a pretty reliable source to see how the Electoral College works and how we, don't elect uh, federal officials on popular vote. So I just wanted to say that I did drop that in the comments. I think it's very helpful uh, for all of us to have that resource to share with people who are confused about it. And I was looking up actually when I missed the mic the first time, I was looking up President Trump or the White House under his administration asked for a census question. Are you a U.S. citizen? And he was shot down. I mean, it was like no, a hard no. And when we filled out our census that came to our home, that was not a question. The importance of that is that the electoral vote is based on population, not registered voters. So thanks a bunch for the mic. I appreciate it. I hope that resource is helpful.
Well, we thank you, Terry. And Terry is right. The census does determine representation for how many congressional seats. I think the Storm brought that up as well.
Yeah, when I wanted to say real quick, just that the NGOs are seemingly going to be giving them voter registration and different things. So that's something I'm going to be doing a public records request regarding if they have had ballots and different things given, because they could even just go fill them out and use them in order for whatever they need to. But that's something for people to look into. You can always do public records requests for whatever information it is. If you want to find out where the money's coming from in your city or county or something like that, even the state, even the federal government. So those are things that we can do to get more information given to us.
Now, you bring up a good point about a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act law. It's a federal law. But go back to the NGOs. That's where it stops. You can't get the information once the dollar hits the NGO hands. It's out of the way. I think it's a fancy way of the government being able to do what the government wants to do without it being the government. Therefore, it doesn't have the oversight of the people. But that's a whole
100%.
nother space. That's a
Yeah.
whole nother space. Hey, I want to welcome Sofa King, talking about great Americans out doing their bid. Sofa King, I believe, was at the Texas State Republican Convention today, rubbing elbows with conservative bigwigs. But how you doing, Sofa? How was your day?
It was a long day, and I got 2 more long days ahead of me. But I wanted to talk real quick about the border crisis and how it affects my neck of the woods. I live about an hour north of the Mexico border, uh, just south of San Antonio, and this is kind of a warning to parents. if you have a teenage boy that has the propensity to be a troublemaker, we just had a rash of car thefts in our neck of the woods, in our area. And what they were doing is they were talking to people online who kind of like cohorted them, or coerced, not coerced, but got them to agree through money to go out and steal cars, not to chop them up like normal, so they were stealing clunkers, uh, or anything that they could steal, they would steal, not because of the value of the car, but because it was a vehicle, and they would bring it down to a predetermined location down by the border, and the cartels are using these stolen vehicles as chase vehicles, so that when the human traffickers are are bringing people up from the border, they will escort with these chase vehicles. And when the border patrol or police start uh, coming up on the traffickers, the chase vehicles will behave in such a way that they take all the attention off the original traffickers, the vehicle that has all the people in it. And then what they do is they speed back down to the border, they hightail it back down to the border, and they will actually drive the car into the Rio Grande. It's called a splashdown. They will drive the car into the Rio Grande, get out, and swim to the Mexico side. And the group of kids that was doing it, it was about a week and a half ago here in our neighborhoods. They are now looking at some hard time because they weren't good at it. Yeah, they stole a bunch of cars, but everybody knew who it was. They had them on videos, all sorts of security cameras and everything. They didn't cover their faces or anything, and now they're looking at some hard time.
Well, I guess you'll have that when it comes to human trafficking and conspiring to do so. Let me go to Kanaya, and I just said it wrong. I don't know why. Just my tongue wouldn't say it correctly. But go ahead, my friend.
That's all right. Thanks, Joe. Hey, man, I wish I had been on the space earlier, but like always, great comments and a lot of information here. The only thing that I wanted to add, and I don't know since I wasn't here earlier, but there's really what I see is there's two crises at the border. There's basically ours and theirs. On our side, we see the crisis as undocumented, unknown illegal aliens crossing the border en masse, unvetted. We all know about that, and that's our crisis, and their crisis on the Democrat side, or I guess the far left, is that there's all these undocumented people coming across that they cannot make citizens immediately, because that's what they desire, and that's what their crisis is. And they've talked about it many times about how they need the Republicans to fix it, how it was so broken under Trump, and what was broken was that he was stopping them from coming over until they could be vetted, and granted either the right to come over and petition for citizenship, or to be told no. Because so anyway, that's I guess my 2 cents worth on that subject. But thanks, Joe. Great space.
Appreciate you, my friend.
Can I say something real quick? Sorry.
You
Is it
bet.
okay?
Go ahead.
So,
Yeah, you bet.
I just thought, well, because the cartels, I mean, they are like robbing them all along the way. They know when the buses are going to be transporting a lot of these people, and they'll have certain stops, and they'll take, basically a certain amount. And if you don't have anything, they'll kick them off the bus and send them back. But also these people are getting Mexican IDs. So, I mean, they can't be claiming that they're seeking asylum when they're already going through the government to go. And a lot of them are Chinese nationals that have those IDs. And so they get these, I even saw an electoral voter ID that had been discarded. So, it's interesting just to see that. As I didn't say that before. Anyway.
Yeah, that's just the document dump is concerning to me. Um, I was going to Kingdom, but it looks like he's dropped out. I don't know if he's having audio issues or not. But go ahead, Dennis.
Yeah, I forgot. I think it was Alaska that mentioned it, and I think Storm did as well. But one of the things that I saw, I don't remember where I saw it, but I think it was Epic Times did a documentary and said that a lot of these illegal immigrants were waiting in Mexico in 2015 until, and somehow they knew, I don't know how this happened, but I guess they either thought or knew or something that Donald Trump was going to lose the election, and when he did, they knew it was going to be much easier for them to get into the country, which I thought was pretty interesting. And maybe Storm, you can kind of speak on that if you know anything about it. But it was very telling that that a lot of these people were biding their time and waiting in Mexico for the election to turn, with Biden to come in, and then that was their opportunity to come into the United States.
So I wasn't aware of that necessarily, but that doesn't surprise me because I can see that happening with how well organized this is. And, it could be that and it makes you wonder who those people are. Like, why would it be those specific people? Because, what's happening is right now they're just flying from, different places, and sometimes they'll have to stay for a little bit. Sometimes it'll take them a while. Maybe they lost their money and they'll have to kind of try and make some until they can get back up here. But they were also having, like, the Mexican government was sending them back. There would be, they would allow so many people to come in at a certain time, and then they would kind of stop the flow to try and, kind of make it sporadic and not such a severe increase or influx right away. So, they'll be telling them you can't go north right now, and would send them all the way back. So they'd have to make their track back up. But as far as what you're saying with them waiting, I could definitely see that, because then again, you would have to question, how would they know? Right. But that's the problem, is that this is a well-oiled machine. It's not just by chance this stuff is happening, that just by chance, all these Chinese nationals are coming, just by chance that, I mean, these people are not, and that's one thing I want to say. They're claim, like, they're not even asking them if they are seeking asylum. When they're being processed, they're just assuming it. So everybody that comes in, they're putting them under that same umbrella, as opposed to asking them and being like, why are you here? They're just getting them through, like, an assembly line, and getting them in and out. Then, it's up to the courts. Basically, they're leaving it up to them to then determine whether or not they can actually seek asylum. So it's like all they've done is made it easier and easier, with Biden being in. So I could see people waiting and going like, well, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to have any problem. Then they can start bringing their family in. But again, it makes you wonder, like, who were those individuals, and why were they the ones that were told this, or how did they get that information? There's a reason for it.
Well, I think Biden and Kamala Harris, when they were running in the 2020 election, made it pretty clear that we welcome you, bring it
Right.
on.
Right.
I don't. I think that we're the foolish ones to think that they didn't mean it.
Yeah.
Because exactly what happened. He signed the executive order that when he relaxed the rules, what it did was it makes everybody that comes across there that that the required to ask question is to see if it's a credible claim of asylum. But they took out the hard ones, like, what you're being oppressed by, or what the nature of your asylum seeking is. They just pretty much gets name and where you're from, and then we're going to parole you and let the courts sort it out. And I think the last I've heard, we're at year 7. We're giving out court dates for 7 years from now for make a determination. And just going back to 2012, more than 80% of the people who claimed asylum in 2012 were rejected. They didn't meet the claims of asylum once they got to court. But we're pushing that out 7 years. It's by design,
Mhm.
I don't think they made it. They told us what they were going to do. We just didn't know what mechanism and what route they'd go and do it. But that's what they've done.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and they, shoot, I just had something I was going to say to that. It's, you know, Oh, shoot. Dang it.
Were you gonna say bullshit?
No, well, it is bullshit.
That's a
It's
quick
what
way to sum it up. That's
I
some
know.
bullshit.
It is. No, but well, it is. I mean, and that's what's so crazy though, is that they'll do anything and everything to just make it easier, instead of putting up barriers. It's like, oh, and that's what I was going to say. I'm sorry, is that during the process of them waiting for their court date, they're still being, given all this information and guidance to getting a job and a social security and like becoming a citizen. So how can you do that if you're supposed to be waiting until you have seen this judge to make sure that you are a viable candidate to stay? Instead, they're like, no, we're going to get you working and paying taxes and, starting up. I mean, it happens as soon as they're done and out of processing. Like and not everybody's going to do it, but it's the ones that actually want to come here and work, because there's some that do. Other people just kind of I just want a better life. I mean, I even had some guy say that, he was leaving because his country, they took the taxes that the people, gave them and wasted it on things that the people didn't want. And I said, welcome to America. That's what happens here. I was like, what are you going to do when you
You're a
find out?
personification of that.
Yeah. And I'm thinking,
You're exactly what we're talking about.
yes. And I'm like, that's what we're fighting against. Like, maybe if you stayed where you were at and tried to fight it there, like, and if we all did that, if you don't like your country, you can't just go to every other one. But this is what the guy said when I asked him, well, what happens when you find out this isn't what the land of the free, like American dream isn't here? What are you going to do? And he's like, oh, I'll just go to another country. And I'm like, oh my gosh, see, like, they don't even really know what they're doing. They're just being exploited. Like, a lot of them. I mean, there's certain ones that are coming over to do nefarious things, but the rest of them are just doing it because they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get everything for free and it's going to be an amazing life out there. And they're willing to spend everything that they have just to come here and not just be lied to. It's so sad.
And Joe, we've got people that forget to go to court in 3 or 4 months for a crime or a traffic citation. Can you imagine how many are going to remember to come to court in 7 years?
When they go to court, will issue a voluntary deportation order.
Yeah.
They got to leave the country on their own. No, seriously, they'll give them that, and then when they don't do that, they stay. It's like they give so many days. So let's say you give you 90 days. You got to be out of the country about 90 days. So on the 91st day, they make contact with law enforcement. Law enforcement typically, if you're not in a sanctuary city and they do what's called the ICE hold, once they go into custody, they'll put them on an ICE hold. And the ICE will say, hey, you're out. You're supposed to have been gone. You've overstayed your welcome, and now you've got to go. Then they'll take them into custody and they go back to court and they got another court date. They got to go back to court and the judge makes a determination whether they do a forceful deportation. In other words, they keep you in custody and fly you back to wherever you're going. But a lot of problems with that. Like, we don't have extradition to Venezuela. The Venezuelans that come here, if we go to deport them, Venezuela's not going to take them back. And they're not the only country when they're coming from all parts across the world. So there's some issues with that. But yeah, if they overstay most of these folks know they're not going to make a credible asylum. And they just don't go. If they don't make contact with law enforcement, then they can stay here for 20 years and then they complain how good of a citizen they've been when they're eventually caught, and they'll fight that in deportation and could have a chance to even win it there.
Yeah.
Let me get some
So
hands. I want to go to
Ronan, Melinda, and then Robbie.
Okay, in that order. Go ahead, Ronan.
So I came in. I heard somebody say somebody was going to get do some hard time or something. Talking about illegal immigration, all that stuff. I don't. So it's all a bullshit game, frankly, and it's basically the equivalent of pharma, right? Like a patient cured is a patient lost, basically. And what I mean by this, the way I correlate this is, so we had that big hoorah here in Texas where, a bunch of these folks died in the back of a tractor trailer in like 110 degrees in San Antonio, right? It's like 150 in the back of that trailer, right? They went all hard, pit bulled on it, the whole bit, right? Well, my wife, this woman she went to school with, we're friends with her. I watched her kids grow up, so on and forth. Her kid, her oldest kid, got caught down in Kerr County here in Texas smuggling illegals. And for all that, being in Texas, for all that bluster they did about them folks in San Antonio, and the guy that did it, whatever, she, this girl, she basically got a slap on the wrist. She got some probation and maybe some community service or something. I don't recall the extent of, but like absolutely zero jail time aside from, when they arrested her when she got caught. She had like 4 illegals in the car or some shit. I don't remember. She was supposed to take them somewhere. But the bigger issue here is like with these groups, La Sin Frontera or whatever their name is, these NGOs, so on and forth, and the politics in our own country. Okay, yeah, we can argue semantics about illegals voting, not voting, whatever the case may be, right? But that ain't actually the problem. The problem is a lot of these people are going to places, right? And these places, they're going to fill up with all these different nationalities, people coming over here, oh, asylum, this and that, so on and forth, right? But the bigger problem is politicians gain power through electoral seats. Now, I'm speaking in layman's terms because I'm a simple dude, and I just cut through all the bureaucracy. I don't need all the bullshit. They get the power through the electoral seats. The electoral seats gives more power, so on and forth. We all know where that goes, right? Well, you got two parties. Some say uniparty, whatever the case may be, but you got people vying for power, and the mud democracy people, they're going pretty hard. I mean, they're exponentially more unified than anybody on the conservative side, that's for sure. Even if they do eat their own half the time, they're still more unified than anybody else. So you take that, you take all them people coming in, and they're going to places that really want power. New York, Denver, Colorado, California, so on, New Jersey, so on and forth. All these blue places, they want to coalesce that power. And most of the time we can see over X amount of years, whatever one coast does, people generally tend to follow, right? And so what you'll have is eventually there's going to be a power vacuum. They're going to come in, they're going to scoop it up, and then we're all screwed. I mean, honestly, the problem is the asylum system in general. It needs to be completely overhauled. Firstly, the second thing is, and again, cutting out the bureaucracy and the bullshit. Questions I have are simple man questions. So you came from the Southern Triangle. Well, you came seeking asylum because you say that you fear gang violence and persecution and so on and forth. Okay, so let me put myself in that person's shoes. You came to a country, you got no money, maybe you got some family, who knows, but most likely you're going to go and you're going to end up living in one of these neighborhoods in one of these states where those same people, like MS-13, so on and forth. I forget what the gang of the new gang is that they've been coming into America. You're gonna move into one of these neighborhoods because one, that's your community. Two, you're in a country that you're not from and you ain't got shit. Three, either you were already being exploited between NGOs and cartels and these gang members, and now you're gonna go keep being exploited in these same neighborhoods with these same people that you just left the Southern Triangle to get away from. So, how is this asylum system actually helping anybody as opposed to how much it's actually hurting Americans? And being honest here, are you actually even helping these people that maybe claim asylum by putting them in those places where they're similar to what they said they were escaping from?
Well, let me say this. I think our asylum system is probably okay if we follow the letter of the law. It's there's some key things that have to happen before one is granted the asylum and parole into the interior in a court date. They've got to pass a battery of questions, and those questions are asking about their situation, and they've got to answer correctly. Of course, NGOs give them cards and tell them what to say when under the Trump administration, when they were asking all the questions. But now they don't have to answer these questions, and the NGOs tell them you don't have to answer these questions. So they'll ask them, but then they don't answer, but they don't have to answer them. That's just, as Storm explained, it's just assumed asylum. So everybody's catching this asylum. I think if the law was enforced correctly, because also if you don't claim asylum, you're in detention camp until they determine a disposition, and we need more judges. Court dates need to be a little faster, I think. But yeah, but I think you're 100% on delegates. I think I don't think sanctuary cities was invented out of compassion. I think it was invented out of a attraction to have more people there in these Democratic held locations so they can get more representation in Congress and be able to control us on a federal level.
For
But John, who was next? I forget. Was it Melanie or Robbie? In Storm, you are our guest
yeah.
speaker tonight.
It
You
was
don't have to raise your hand. You chime in
Well, yeah,
anytime you
because
like.
I just wanted to say about the like that whole thing where, you know, there's people that even I met that came across that were saying they tried to do it legally and they kept getting denied. So, I mean, even though people want to do that, they get to a point where then, and I believe that's by design. So then they just kind of come across because they're like, well, if it's the only way that I can get there, and they really want to leave where they're at because, you know, they're being brainwashed into believing that it's going to be better here. That's just kind of sad because it is like messes with the entire system being able to run right. But I've had friends, I remember a couple of years ago, that were being deported back to where they came from because they couldn't, like they needed some help and they weren't able to get the help that they needed. So it's sad to see that, you know, people that come here legally and do it the right way, it's like everything is just kind of inverted and flip-flopped. You know, they're helping these people who are doing it illegally, and then the people that want to do it legally, they're just kind of getting screwed over.
You know, I've invited Erath. He's a frequent flyer in our shows, but he is immigrated from um, Australia here for a job. And I forget, he was just telling us the other night, we had a space on the trend of illegals, undocumented persons, hiring people to rob them so they're a victim of a crime and they can get this U visa that secures their place in the United States for at least 4 years because they were a victim of a crime. But Erath was explaining to, I forget how many years it was, if anybody else can remember. It was a few years he had to wait before he could actually get to the United States and do it properly. Whereas where the immigration laws are now, it's probably more cost effective to walk across the border and get into the asylum program and then try to figure out your legalization and your right to stay in the next 6 to 7 years.
What?
John, once again,
So you
go ahead,
got
Storm.
Melinda, Robbie, Aaron, and then Tuff.
Okay, but go
Yeah, I
ahead,
just want
Storm.
to say because the app thing that we were talking about before, or well, I wrote that down. You were talking about like when they're going to their court date, they give them like they train like what they do is they tell them they give them an app and they give them all this information. They don't even know how to navigate it. So even if they wanted to get into their court date when they wanted to, it's still up to them to like register and like they could tell them when you get to your location and you need to change your address, do it this way. So they leave it so obscure that it pretty much leads people into not necessarily even being able to do the right stuff in the right amount of time. So that's what I just wanted to add. Anyway, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's broken out of ignorance. I think it's broken intentionally. But I think Melinda, go ahead, Melinda.
Hi, thanks for having me. Um, when you had a speaker on, I came in the room when you were talking about the Epic Times and a story they wrote. There was another one they wrote, or it's a video last month. I would encourage anybody, even if you're not a member, to pay the $4 to watch it. It basically talked about the mass migration started back when Obama was in office. Even though we didn't have the infiltration like we do now, it was planned back then. And I'm just going to read this. It's Obama and Biden have been working with the United Nations, the NGOs, and the IOM to infiltrate our country. And I forget the number, the millions of people. It was either 10 million or 15 million immigrants. So basically, they started this, planned it back when Obama was in office. But when Hillary didn't get elected and Trump came in, obviously, you know, the plan was halted. And then when President Trump didn't get reelected in 2020, it was like all systems go. So they started the mass migration again. So I just wanted to it was such a great documentary that he did. And he did it on the Darien Gap, and it explained everything. And, because we all had a lot of questions like, why are they doing this? Is it for elections and voting? And which that's true. Why else would they allow immigrants to vote in certain states? I'm not sure if that's really come to fruition. Does anyone know? Have states actually, are they going to allow the immigrants to vote?
New York was the last one I heard tried in their own state constitution, shot it down. I think every state constitution says that you have to be a U.S. citizen to vote. So I don't know of a place that is legitimately.
Shoot, you cut out a little bit.
Joe,
Yeah,
your rubber band. gone.
there's no place that legitimately allows it,
Elections as well.
but they have
So don't know of
completely
one.
relaxed any kind of checks so that it won't be caught if anybody does.
Yeah, they're making it easier for it to happen. Like they're not making it so that it's impossible. They're like opening up the door for them to legally per se, which it isn't, but in their eyes to be able to do that.
Well, but I would say this. I don't think that's the real game in this. Maybe eventually that's the game, but in the game now, if the Democrats are trying to win New York, they're winning New York anyway. Where they're going to, they're attracted to these sanctuary cities because there's incentives to do there. There's resources there that there's not in other states. So they're going to these locations. I really think it's more representation on the federal level. That's what the Democrat Party would want. They don't want power at the states. They want it on the federal level, and that would give them more control of congressional seats. If New York added a congressional seat, by God, it's probably going to be a Democrat seat, and that's going to be another one sitting on the blue team in the House. But I think it also goes back further, and you're right, it did begin under the Obama administration, but we started here this thing about decolonization and colonialization. The accusation that's and some of the accusations are true. I mean, it's where the borders are drawn in the Middle East. It's where the borders are drawn in a lot of African countries, are the result of European colonization and informing these states. But there seems to be a push now to reverse that, and by reversing that is essentially we have the spoils because these nations in the southern hemisphere we took advantage of, so we have the spoils, so now we have to give those spoils back. That's a line of thought when it gets on the liberal side on how they think about it. That's why some people say this is not a problem, we're just paying it. It's like the guys that will kiss the shoes of black people. Not that I'm saying I'm a racist or anything, but I'm not going to get on my hands and knees and kiss anybody's shoes. I didn't done anything that warrants that type of subjugation. But that seems to be what the thought is going back to the Obama administration, is when this Southern Hemisphere and decolonization theory really popped up inside the Democratic Party. So I agree with you, Melanie.
This actually,
I'm sorry, Melinda.
this actually goes back even further than Obama. This world migration, mass migration thing started in the UN, and I think it goes back to 2000 or 2001. It's a long time ago that they started this. And then you can go on their website and they still have links to the documents, but the documents aren't there anymore, or it's blocked access. But their original plan was for like 450 million people to migrate to North America. So it's scaled down.
But I guess my point to that, Grizz, is that the UN can do it, but they don't have the authority to pass law inside the United States. They have to have co-conspirators, so to
Yeah,
speak.
let me
I agree with you. It is a UN plan, but it's been our government that's paved the way for this to happen here. But we've seen the same thing in the European countries happening as well, where those countries have capitulated to the UN as well.
We fund them too.
Right. So
The most.
that's where I'm going with this. So John's question a while ago was how, is our country funding it? And in the answer is a resounding absolutely yes, we are. And we fund it from like 15 directions, right? We fund the WEF, we fund the WHO, we fund the UN, we fund like the majority of every globalist, organization there is out there. So we fund the UN. The UN passes that money out to the state of California and their health and human services people, and they fund the NGOs. And the government funds the NGOs directly through 15 different kind of grants, right? And it all trickles down. We're funding this from like 100 different directions. The cash flow, sources of cash flow to those places is pretty much unlimited, I believe.
Well, I mean, I think we said that earlier too. My personal opinion is we're never going to see a change. Protesting is not going to change anything. You might stop something here and there, but we're never going to see a real fundamental change in the way these programs are funded and where our money goes until we get a hold of our elected officials, both in the state and in the capital. But let me get some hands, folks. We're down to the last 15 minutes. I want to get everybody's hand that's up now. Everybody an opportunity to chime in. Go ahead, Brother Robbie. Thank you for being another guest tonight.
No problem. No, I appreciate you, Joe. Hope everybody's doing well as always. Yeah, this is I don't know, man. This is like another thing that just like, makes me just think like, this is not even a country no more, right? Like how hard is it to, just abide by what laws you put in the books? And again, right, I don't see anybody in their respective states where a lot of this stuff is going on, where you got illegal immigrants getting all kind of freebies, thousands of dollars on a card that they can use however they please. Ain't nobody sitting up here, man, that hotel should be shut down right now. But no, man, people are too freaking lazy. They just want to run their mouth about how bad shit is, but they never want to put no skin in the game. And it just can't be one person to do it. It's got to be all of us to do it. We got to show up in mass. Just as many people showing up for this damn Trump rally right now in the Bronx. That's how many people should be up at them damn hotels where them illegal immigrants are staying for free on our dime. But you don't see that. It's people out here. I'm looking at numbers right now where, no, before I get into that, this morning I just seen a couple that's sleeping in a damn U-Haul truck. They got to rent a U-Haul truck to have shelter. Catholic Charities used to have a fund that would help people that's falling on hard times. They don't do that anymore, but they damn sure got funds to help illegal immigrants. The same goes for the Salvation Army. The same that goes for, like you just bringing up, all these other NGOs that are created specifically to help other people other than the suffering Americans that's going on right now. Especially the veterans that can't get seen to get help at the VA, that get stepped over every day in the street. This shit is appalling, man. That's why I don't really give a damn about an election. I don't really care about all this other bullshit, because all that's going to happen is that people are going to go to the voting booth, pick their choice, then they're going to go back home, sit their ass back down on that couch, gorge off the food they got in the refrigerator, tune in and see what fucking game is on, sit back and that's it. They think their job is done. I'm so tired of that shit. I really am. And that's why I feel the way that I feel about I'm sorry. I know people come in to this country and the right way and shit like that. But I'm at the point where I'm like, our doors are fucking closed to whoever. I don't give a shit what you got going on. I don't care if you come in here for a job. I don't care about none of that bullshit right now. We got people we got to take care of right here, right now. Doors are fucking closed. Come back in 15, 20 years. Because it's appalling, man.
Hey, Robbie, let me get you to land so I can get some hands. We got the after party,
Oh
brother.
yeah,
We
no,
can
I
sure pick
landed.
that up.
Yeah, I landed and skidded and slid in third base.
Slide into third. I want to go to Tough. And guys, we're down to the last 10 minutes. Let's try to keep our comments and questions or
Hey, Joe,
whatever
right quick,
the view
Bruce
is.
and Grizz, I sent y'all a message if y'all can check it right quick.
But let's try to keep it about a minute. Tough. Go ahead.
Hi, you guys. This space is very, very good. I appreciate all the people that spoke. Eye of the Storm, that was really good. Of course, you know, when it's good, it means that it's getting us riled up and we're realizing more truth and we're getting, you know, a sense of like urgency. And that's how I feel right now. And I was noticing I was feeling frustrated and then a sense of, I want to do something. And then I thought, well, wait a minute, no matter what I do, is it going to do any good? So I went through all those feelings and then I thought, okay, what's the bigger picture? And what occurred to me was so at work, I tried to point something out to my boss who has a political science degree. He knows, like, the community asked him to run for mayor just because he has charisma and he's very organized. And he decided not to. Pain in the rear, not enough money. And he, you know, it was kind of impressive that people nominated him for that, right? He's busy with his job, his kids in coaching, and now his kids are like gone off after doing college ball, and he's still talking about the upcoming athletes that are coming up with his friends. I'm thinking, does he not understand what's happening with the country? Like, he's so locked into what he's done before. I love him, but I'm seeing these, you know, people in Oregon, these Christians who are so caught up in what the glory days, now they're retirement age, and they don't seem to care or understand what's happening. So I tried to talk to him about it. We had kind of a problem at work today, and I thought I better keep my mouth shut. He said, I don't have time to think about this stuff. So here I'm frustrated, and then listening to you guys today, we're all on the same, you know, thing. We get it, but they don't, you know, the normies. So I was thinking, okay, so what do? Do we get frustrated and let it get us depressed and you know, whatever, all the negative feelings of like there's nothing we can do? And this is what came to me was the United States CIA. And there's some spaces I've been in where a colonel, it's a woman, retired colonel, her last name's Watkins. She's in golf space. She talks about Gladio. Gladio is like the stories of the CIA going into other countries, training people to rise up and torture people and do horrible things within their own country. And we know the CIA has been doing this, right? But our country, us, our people have been too fat and happy, too entertained to really care. And now, so if we think about it biblically, this is the pattern we see, like in Isaiah, book of Isaiah, is God scolds nations and says, do you care about me? Are you good or not? Because judgment's coming. And then he promises them, if you repent, I will take you under my wing and protect you, right? And so we can't think that, you know, we have to look at this. I think if we're going to be wise, we have to look at this in terms of compassion for other people in the world. So the people coming over the border have been suffering. Has America really cared? No, because we were convinced, you know, that it was hidden from us, right? So what I'm thinking is that perhaps what we need to think about, this is just my idea, and I'm open to ideas, or just to get you guys thinking. And if you agree, let me know, because then it encourages me to keep thinking this way. Is so the bad guys are now setting their own trap because they're destroying the system. And I think it's going to take the comfortable, successful Americans to wake up and come out of their trance of living in the past and being entertained, that things get bad. But here's the key that we need to be ready to do is educate them as to why. I feel we need to just start saying, here's what's happening, here's why, here are the bad guys, so that when things really get bad, their heads don't turn towards making it about Christians ruining things or Trump ruining things, that they know exactly it's the people in office. So that when the dominoes start falling, the people of this nation know who to blame. And I'm going to just read a scripture real quick. I just do this because it helps me understand. And it's real quick, Isaiah 33, it says, "Woe to you, O destroyer, you who have not been destroyed. Woe to you, O traitor, you have not been who have not been betrayed. When you stop destroying, you will be destroyed. When you stop betraying, you will be betrayed." And then a promise a little bit further, it says, "For the Lord is our judge, the Lord is our lawgiver, the Lord is our king. It is he who will save us." So we just have to remember that there's a plan in action. And what does God want us to do to reveal the truth? And are we willing to maybe pass out flyers, email a bunch of people, do whatever it takes just to educate the people as to what's happening? Otherwise, they're going to get a false narrative as to why it's all going bad. So, it's easier to educate than to change things. So, are we willing to at least pass out flyers? Like, what are we willing to do? Like that gentleman just said that's frustrated, Robbie. What are we willing to do? Are we willing to do anything? Because talking about it, we've got to get to a point where we've learned so much, but when are we going to take our education and turn it into action? That's a tricky thing. So I'll just end it there. Just getting us thinking, like, what are we going to do now? Thank you.
Thanks, Tuff. Guys, we're down to 4 minutes. I'm going to go to Brian and Shane. I'm going to have to keep you guys a minute.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate you. I'll try to be as brief as possible. First of all, let me just say I have absolutely nothing against anybody coming into this country and becoming a citizen, so long as they go through the proper channels and the procedures. Because actually, we are one of the easiest countries to gain citizenships in the world. Let's get that out there right now. But I want to echo something that Robbie said. Okay, it's true. A lot of these illegals are coming into the country. They're being taken care of, hand and foot by whatever city they go into, or what, so on and so forth. And I don't want to get deep in the weeds on that. But here's my problem. If that is so easy for all of these illegals to come into this country and being taken care of so well, then back to the point that I made about how to become an American citizen. There's channels you have to go through. There's things that you have to do. Why is this so hard for our veterans to get benefits? Why do they have to jump through tons of paperwork, tons of it, okay, in order just to get even thought of to being taken care of? That, to me, is the biggest crime ever. Because, ladies and gentlemen, let's face the facts. Without our veterans, past and present, we wouldn't even be able to hold this space right now. Do you think you could hold this space in Saudi Arabia? Do you think you could hold this space in Iran? Do you think you could hold this space in... No! But our veterans are thought of lesser than the people that are brought into this country and taken care of with free this, free that, debit cards with 10, 20, whatever $1,000 on them. That's crazy to me. I've got nothing against people coming into this country to become part of our society. That's not a problem with me. But if you come
Brian,
into
I'm running
this
out of time.
country and you're given this, nah, bro, there's something wrong with that. And Joe, I got to tell you this, bro, and this is just my thought, and I'll end right here. This is being allowed, whether we like it or not, for votes. That's plain and simple, and I'll end there. So thank you for having me up, Joe.
Thanks, Brian. Shane and Aaron, I hadn't forgot you, brother. I was actually going to come to you, but we're just flat running out of time. I want to thank
Joel,
Just give me 30 seconds.
Can
Aaron,
can
will you follow?
do
Will
the
you?
after party? I guess not. Go ahead.
No, Aaron. I want you to follow Joe to the after party because I know him and I have talked. He's got really good stuff to say. And Jason, follow over there. Well, Aaron, meet Jason. He's right next to you as a speaker right now. He's law enforcement. But literally, let's continue this conversation on the other side because I think there's a lot to be said. Aaron has a lot of background story, a lot of experience, and we can actually answer some of Brian's questions and Robbie's questions. It's probably not what you want to hear entirely, but unless you understand what it is you're fighting, that you can't actually fight what it is going on. So if you all will follow over there, Aaron, please do, and I will see you over there.
All right. Well, Shane took care of my monologue for me. That's exactly what I was going to say. Aaron, my apologies not getting to you. I've run out of time. But come to the after party. We'll continue the conversation. I want to thank Eye of the Storm for being an awesome guest tonight in breaking down some pretty good information for us. And also, Storm, you're invited to the after party. We get a little looser there. Everybody seems to be very strongly opinionated on it, and we're just flat out of time for the night. Thanks, guys. Great space as usual. Catch us tomorrow. We'll do our normal Friday night police use of force review.
Okay.
It's a simulcast both in video and in our spaces. And our good friend Jason will sit on the panel, but we have a panel of law enforcement officers, attorneys, and civilians that review videotapes. If you hadn't seen these before, that they're one of our better shows each week. So join us there and give me about 10 minutes. We'll kick up the after party.